don't know if I can take this seriously.
Don't.
That's not the point.
We're not going to. So
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
Well, if you do, we'll take the mick out of you.
On a little Larry-o, I went to a house in the middle of the night when the moon was shining clearly. I went to a house in the middle of the night when the moon was shining clearly. She answered the door.
All right,
and she
good
let
afternoon,
me in,
everybody.
and
I'm
if
here
all I
with
wanted
Teacups. Hi,
here
guys.
was with me today, for the little
And this
today,
is
for
the
little
start
Larry-o.
of their little mini series of kind of listening clubs to celebrate 10 years of the band, and also to celebrate the upcoming release of their much anticipated new album. So today we're going to be having a listen through this, which is One for the Pot, the debut album from the Teacups. I'm remembering to show it to the right camera there. So we're going to have a listen through the album. I'm going to ask the guys some questions. Thanks so much for asking me to host this, even though it's one I didn't record.
I wondered how long it was going to take you to mention that, Pete.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd slip it in early. So this came out in 2013, and I thought maybe just before we started listening to the tracks and discussing them, I'd maybe just ask you guys what the events were that kind of led up to the recording of this album, kind of how long you'd been together, where you met, all of that kind of thing.
Who wants to go first?
Rosie.
Oh gosh. Okay. So we met, as most people watching will probably know, we met on the folk degree up in Newcastle, and in 2010, and I think it was something like the first week of the first semester that we got together and started singing. So yeah, it just sort of grew from there, really. So I mean, that sounds about right. 3 years, that's like a time it takes to come up with enough repertoire to do an album.
We've built up roughly an album's worth.
Enough repertoire.
Enough repertoire.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
and it all happened kind of by accident, because it was actually in one of our lectures where there was the whole year group was putting together like a big band set, and it was all very tune focused. And then right kind of near the end, one of the lecturers, I can't even remember who it was, said, "Oh, does anybody want to do any sort of singing bits?" And it was just our four hands, and we didn't even know each other at that point very well, apart from the usual freshers week antics. But it just kind of came together from there, and we had a
That
really nice
suggests
time.
something that I'm not sure you intended to suggest there. Okay.
No, nothing.
She's completely aware. It's deliberate.
Why do you think I moved to America?
Nothing that I can remember, which suggests there probably was, yes. No, it was just the four of us, and we had a nice time, and it got to the end of that lecture, and we just sort of went, that was fun. Should we do that again? And we did.
In the heady early days, we kind of went, we should hire a practice room and try doing that on our own time. Yeah.
So then fast forward 3 years, and you decide to record an album. So how long had you been? You've been gigging for a while then? Were you definitely a bona fide band taking it seriously, or were you just, we've got maybe some free use of recording studios at uni, let's just do it? Or
Bit of both, really.
Yes to both.
I think we'd done a bunch of...
I didn't think it was as late as 2013.
Well, I guess
we
you were
would've
maybe
recorded
recording it.
Yeah, in like 2012 or whatever, and then it came
We
out.
did it over summer, didn't we? It was in summer holidays or something.
That sounds
about
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we'd scraped together about 50p, so we were like, let's make an album.
So that must have been 2012, probably summer of 2012.
Yeah.
I guess. And you
So,
drafted
and
it.
I think we'd done a summer of gigs, and we just had lots of people sort of come up and say, "Oh, have you done an album?" And we just went, "Oh, no." And it happened often enough to want to do it. And I don't know about anybody else, but when we picked the name for the band, it was quite interesting, because we ended up picking it just sort of arbitrarily. And I remember one of our lecturers also said, "Oh, that's not that sensible a name." And I remember at the time thinking, well, no, but lots of bands don't have very sensible names. And it at the time I never thought, oh, we'll still be doing this in 10 years. because if I had thought we're still going to be doing this in 10 years, maybe we'd have picked something else. I don't know. I mean, I quite like it still.
Yeah, I do too.
It might have changed my
2020.
perspective on it if I'd known how long it was going to last.
But for one gig, what I do remember is because we picked the name. We picked the name while sat in a cafe, just pointing. And it was actually so for one gig only. We were in the cafe pre a gig, which we just still didn't have a name for in this first gig. And so we were just pointing at things, and for one gig we were called the Dirty Teacups, which I'm glad we dropped part of it.
Yeah.
But I think it was what made us really change our mind was a Google search and Urban Dictionary, I seem to remember. So
Yeah.
I remember now.
Yeah. Don't look it up
let's just
if you want
remember-
to. If you want to
we wanna
not
keep
have
this
that image
PG.
in your mind. Like,
I
just,
think
let's
it's likely
just
this will
not.
be going out before the watershed, so let's,
Yeah.
that might be a good time to move on.
Save yourselves.
but the first track on the album is also pretty relevant to this whole story because it's As I Roved Out, and this was one of the first songs we put together as a band for a St. Patrick's Day concert, which was our very first concert at the Sage Gateshead, and we performed 2 songs. Was that right?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
And this was one we put together for that concert, and it's the first track on the album, but it's also one of the first tracks we did together. It's also responsible for us choosing the Dirty Teacups as our original name, and this whole song is a real good starter, and for many reasons, I think.
Well, that's a beautiful segue, Al. It's almost like you've done radio.
Yeah. What a pro.
So maybe that's a good starting point. So maybe we should start the album and have a little listen.
Who are you, my pretty fair maiden? Who are you, my honey? Who are you, my pretty fair maiden? Who are you, my honey? She answered me quite modestly, I am my mother's darling, with me to Rhea. Father little da, today father little Larry-o. Will you come to my mother's house when the sun is shining clearly? Will you come to my mother's house when the sun is shining clearly? I'll answer the door and I'll let you in, and divil the one will hear us with me to Rhea. Father little da, today father little Larry-o. I went to a house in the middle of the night when the moon was shining clearly. I went to a house in the middle of the night when the moon was shining clearly.
I'm just remembering all the cheesy dance moves we do at gigs now.
No one did hear us with me to Rhea. Father little da, today
It's funny because I think this is the song that really grabbed me when I first saw you guys live. I think this was the one that made me go, yeah, these guys have really got something.
This was like really early days of us showing off.
Well, I feel like this is I still think that this is a song that we did the most with. Like, there are people coming in and out all the time, and there's oohs and ahs all over the place, and, girls' bits and lads' bits, and all sorts of different things. And I don't feel like we ever did that again, and I'm not sure whether that's because I don't remember this one being that difficult, but it was hard to remember for me anyway what was coming next. And I don't know if we got to the other songs and went, oh, we're not doing that again.
I think you and I remember that only slightly differently, Kate, in that I remember it took way too long to come up, moving at a snail's pace, working out some of those sort of twisty bits.
I remember as well, in the book where we had the arrangement written out, this one, we had a different colour on every single verse, like everyone was written out differently, so I think this one was green. Like, I've just got that kind of like sense memory for it.
with me to Rhea. Father little da, today father little Larry-o. When will you return again, and when will we get married? When will you return again, and when will we get married? When broken shells make Christmas bells, we may well get married with me to Rhea. Father little da, today father little Larry-o. Who are you, my pretty fair maiden? Who are you, my honey? Who are you, my pretty fair maiden? Who are you, my honey? She answered me quite modestly, I am my mother's darling, with me to Rhea. Father little da, today father little Larry-o.
It's funny, you were totally right in that, listening back to that, it's you can totally hear us as a band like experimenting with all these things for the first time, and we've basically put every single idea that we've since put across various songs, 2 albums worth of songs in one track. Yeah.
So that's just maturity, isn't it? But I think when I first saw you guys and you did that, you kind of that track. You're right, because it's clearly a set of people who are very excited about the prospect of kind of singing with like-minded people, and you've just gone, here are all of the ideas, and just really gone for it. And but that made me, and this made me as a listener kind of go quite excited as well about where 2 or 3 albums down the line would be. That was kind of the thing that I remember seeing and thinking about it, and thinking these guys need a good producer and someone to I'll be honest.
Thank you.
I'll be honest.
You got
I remember that
kid.
being the song as well, where I was like, blimey, Alex can sing really low.
Yeah. I also have a really funny memory of this one that we were singing at a friend of ours. I think it was a 21st birthday party, and like by the time that we went on, everyone had quite a few drinks, and I remember we were singing that one, and people were like kind of like half raving to it,
like club
and like
dancing.
and like it got to like a quiet verse in the middle, and they're all sort of going like get low, get low, get low kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's just in my brain
And
constantly now.
I think as well, I think this is the one that we uploaded to MySpace in the really early days, and because no one was really using MySpace then, like 6 people listened to it, and it was like #1 on the MySpace charts or something, so
totally.
we continuously referred to it as our #1 hit for quite a long time.
Oh man.
Brilliant.
For quite a long time, I think, for the entirety of our gigging career, and any time we sang it,
So we're looking at T stands for Thomas next.
Now, I do remember this is one that Kate brought to the band, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did, and do you know what?
You muted yourself, Kate, but other
I've
than that,
never
this is
been
going really
quite-
smoothly.
Sorry. I did bring it, and I just remember the beginning. I was never happy with it. I just don't think I did a very good job. I'm not going to listen to this bit.
Okay.
All right.
Will this work?
Okay, I'll kick off. T stands for Thomas.
Now as I was a-walking on a May morning and sat down by a tall lofty tree.
I've got to make a comment about that little bit there, Kate. That bit, I love that little kind of swooning.
No, here it comes. Here it comes.
Find out something more about courting. And its T stands for Thomas.
I like it. I like it. You're muted again, but
J-O-N stands
I just feel like that second line I could have done a much better job, but
and it's W-E.
This was the start of a long and prosperous career in Kate being convinced she can't sing as high as she can.
Come and sit down with me, together on the grass.
And me pretending I can sing a lot lower than I can.
Grass so very green. It's a long 3/4
Here it comes, Will.
of a year, darling dear, since together
I reckon you could
and
probably
I
get that
have
better
been
these days, though. I think you just sound young.
seen.
And its T stands.
This is part of what I'm thinking just the whole time through this. I'm partly like, we don't sound any different, and then I'm also simultaneously like, who are these babies? You know, like.
W-E-N-M stands for my sweet William, because he is a clever young man. No, I'll not sit with you together on the grass. Not now, no.
I know it sounds weird to say for a harmony group, but I actually always really enjoyed a lot of the unison singing we did, because I felt like I was lucky in the sense that all 3 of you seemed to be able to have some area of overlap with me, so I can sing in unison with any of you, and I always really enjoyed that, especially when there's bits where me and Will sing in unison and then split apart, and then in reviews the reviewers can't tell which one of us is which.
Yeah, my when this album came out, I remember that was some of my mum's feedback. There was a moment like that, and my mum saying, I cannot work out which one of you between you and Kay is doing this bit. But yeah, no, unison, man. I do think it's really underutilized. Exactly.
Well, I remember us actually approaching this arrangement with that in mind, because we were like, I think especially coming off the back of the first track we arranged with As I Rubbed Out, it's so intense, and that the chorus harmonies were so luscious enough that we wanted the verses to be simpler, and I think it worked out quite nicely.
Jon stands for John, and it's W-E-N-M stands for my sweet William.
Us two doing that little kind of dropping bit. I've always liked that.
Oh, you cutie.
Go and climb a taller tree than that, and a hurry for richer nest.
I think one of the reasons this one appealed to me is that bit that Rosie and I sing together. Well, I'm going to go and find a bigger tree than you've ever seen in your life. You know, that kind of, not really aggressive, but on the slightly ruddy, edge. I always like songs with a bit of that.
Jon stands for John, and it's W-E-N-M stands for my sweet William, because he is a clever young man.
Oh yeah, a little bit of dissonance there. I'm into that.
Oh yes, that was my my first flirting with the minor ninth.
And God, it's gone on forever.
Sorry, suspended ninth. Sorry, I'm about to lose my music nerd card.
Because he is a clever young man.
Very nice.
I have just remembered about that one, that we wrote a verse. Does anyone remember? We wrote a verse introducing the band.
Yes.
Lord, it's been
I've forgotten
years.
how it goes. Who remembers
It
it?
was A stands for Alex, I suppose.
K-A-T.
K-A-T
stands for
for
Kate.
Kate.
stands for Kate.
And W and E and M stands for My Sweet William, remaining unchanged. And Rosie is
And
really,
Rosie
really
is
great.
really, really great.
I did not write that line, just so everyone knows.
I think what I'd forgotten about this album is that I think you just nail it with those first two tracks. I think as for a debut, and that it really sets out like the rest of the album and the rest of a kind of career trajectory in many ways. I think it's just both of those two songs I just feel so Teacups to me.
I was thinking that as well. They feel very classic us kind of thing. It's, yeah, the bread and butter, I would say.
Well, in that case, that was a great listening party, and we'll see you next time.
Mwah, good night, everybody.
Yeah. What's next? What's next on the list?
I don't even know.
Next.
I can't remember. I mean, I can't remember the last time I even
Same.
looked at the cover, let alone listen
It's
to
the
any of this stuff,
Lincolnshire Poacher.
so... Ah.
Another
It was like
another
this one.
banger.
Another banger. Okay, I will. In which case, I will kick off.
This is
Lincolnshire
just going to be a
Poacher.
whole 10 tracks of going, oh yeah, this one's great as well.
Yeah.
We are great, aren't we?
And to be fair, like it's. I think that's probably the best of the two situations. I'd much rather listen to our old albums and go,
Be like,
you know
"Oh,
what, this is pretty good.
yeah."
Yeah. As, the alternative being like, oh god, I can't bear it. Oh.
Oh, I'm sure that's
Yeah,
gonna
for
come.
real.
All right, Lincolnshire Poacher.
When I was bound apprentice in famous Lincolnshire, full well I served my master for more than 7 year, till I took up to poaching, as you shall quickly hear. Oh, 'tis my delight on a shiny night in the season of the year, as me and my companions were setting of a snare. 'Twas then we spied the gamekeeper, for him we did not care.
I'm just remembering a friend of ours who misheard that line every time as kinky pear, not gamekeeper.
Just then I spade the kinky pear.
Yeah. I think it was Louis, actually.
I just got cramp in my jaw.
Well, that's going to be an excellent game in gigs going forward.
Smashing.
Night in the season of the year, I threw him over my shoulder, and then we trudged home. I took him to a neighbour's house and sold him for a crown. I sold him for a crown, me boys, I need not tell you where. Oh, 'tis my delight on a shiny night in the season of the year. Success to every gentleman.
One of the things about the music choices that you were saying earlier,
to every poacher who wants to sell a
it's
hat.
kind of a classic sound. I think there's some freedom in being at the beginning of a venture that you don't really know if it's going to work or how long it's going to be around for, because you just have freedom in material. Choose songs that you like. And I remember a few years down the line when we were doing the second and the third albums,
In the
it's
season
much more
of
like,
the year.
oh, what should we pick now? You know, we can't pick something that's really well known. We should be going off and finding, you know, lesser known stuff. And if we do this one, well, someone else has done it recently, or, you know. And I felt the longer we did it, the more pressure there was on the material choice. Whereas
Yeah, you've
right
got to
back at the
continue being
beginning,
impressive.
It was really free.
Yeah,
Well,
totally.
I don't know if it was so much impressive. It was more just like, I mean, and this goes back to a real hang up I've got, is when I first started doing anything in folk clubs, which wasn't all that long before I came to do the folk degree. Someone made a remark about a song I'd done about it being an old chestnut, and it wasn't clear to me whether they meant so it's nice to hear it again because we haven't heard it for a long time, because it was done a lot in the 60s and 70s, or whether it was that's an old chestnut, we don't do that anymore kind of thing. And I know it doesn't really matter because you can just do what you want, can't you? But I really enjoyed that freedom in the beginning of just going, well, I'm doing this one because it's a good song and I like singing it, and you know, that's a good enough reason. And
I think that.
But I remember particularly in
Go on,
oh,
Al.
sorry,
No, go on,
Pete,
Al.
darling. I was gonna say particularly in our early days, that was a lot of what the compliments we got actually, was the fact that we were singing these songs that hadn't been sung since like the earlier like the 60s 70s folk revival and the folk clubs, which we actually didn't, it wasn't an actively main decision for us to do that. It was just we found some good songs. And I guess when we first got into harmony singing, we were big into listening to things, people like the Coppers and the Watersons, and you know, that era of harmony singing. And so I think we just took a lot of inspiration from
I
that.
think
Yeah.
there's
Wilson's, yeah.
an added pressure that comes with kind of second and third albums, that as an a cappella group, that you feel like you've got to do something different to what you've done before, as well as because the material is almost everything at that stage, isn't it? And I think if you're full of instruments, then you can go massive on the production, or you can really go off on a tangent. But when you're in a cappella group, it really is just the four of you singing, essentially.
Totally.
Well, and that's particularly what was really nice about, I remember this being one of the lower stress albums in some ways. It was stressful because it was our first one, but and it's the first time we'd been in the studio together, but the pressure was really off. We literally just stood in a room with 4 microphones and sang these all live like that. So there was really not much pressure on any part, really. We were just we're like we are on Zoom today. Like we were just basically dicking around and then taking some takes of us singing. You know, that was that was what it was. It was really lovely.
Yeah. I think as well, just to what you were saying before, Pete, it's interesting because I feel kind of simultaneously like there is a pressure to do something new and interesting and different. But I think there's also, and I don't know if any of the others find this, I find a pressure within myself to go, well, what's going to be the, you know, the As I Roved Out of this album, or what's going to be the Journey's End of this album? Like, what's going to be the big weepy finisher, or what's going to be the, you know, the kind of more rambunctious, yeah, exactly. And like, I'm just sort of noticing a bit more within myself, like maybe don't have so many rules about this stuff and just do the material you want to do, you know?
Yeah, because you can't do these things. I mean, I completely agree with you. And in a way, when we sort of did the second album, we were a bit. Or was it the third? I can't even remember.
Well, we've got another 2 to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a case of, like you say, what's going to be this one of that album, and it's almost like you start doing it by numbers.
Yeah.
And I think that's where things start to fall apart. And I think we didn't hold on to that idea too much for too long, because with that first album, it was just a case of, oh, there are some people who have said they'd like us to do an album, so we'll do an album, and they can buy it, and then everything will be fine. We won't worry about it anymore.
Are you ready for an Alex radio production DJ segue?
Yeah, let's do it.
We were talking about doing things different, and what you were saying about like we're looking for the next version of this on the next album, and
just
the
before
next
you
track.
jump in with the next track, Al, I just had a quick comment I wanted to make, sort of just building on something that was said earlier. We briefly mentioned earlier that this first album was in the sort of pre-Pete days, and this album was actually recorded by my eldest brother Anis, who's also a sound engineer, who kind of agreed to do it for a song and that kind of thing. Hey, pun intended.
Hey.
But yeah, and I remember him mentioning when we were talking about the album and sort of planning it all out, and him saying like, okay, so it's just voices then, it's all a cappella, there's nothing else, no instruments, nothing like that. So yeah, it's all just going to be harmony singing. And at the time, he had an opinion where he was like, you might want to think about in the album, fair enough singing it live, but in the album, you might want to think about adding in like some kind of instrumentation, something, just because, the ear will get bored of just hearing voices for so long. And I really enjoyed proving him wrong.
Well, when we come on to the other albums in next week and the week after, I'll talk you through my take on that, because it is, as a producer and as an engineer, it does throw you some questions to think about, especially when so much of the rest of your time is geared around the emotional arc of instrumentation typically. So it did make me think quite a lot, but I'll save that for when it comes to one-sided.
Can I just add one more thing? That the thing that not bothered me exactly, but it's another thing that sort of stuck in the back of my mind after the first album, which we didn't really satisfy people with the second album, is that people complained that it was too short. So it had 10 or so songs on, but it was only sort of 35 minutes. But the thing is, we haven't got an instrumental intro, we haven't got gaps between verses, we haven't got an instrumental in the middle, we haven't got an outro. By nature, a lot of these songs, if you give them to a band, give the same song with the same verses and the same version to a band that's got a load of instruments, of course it's going to be longer. You're going to get more out of that time-wise, because there's just more stuff, more stuff to use and more stuff to do. So I kind of felt I didn't really think about it too much during the second album, and the second album came out not much longer either. So when we got to the third one, which I'm sure we'll talk about a bit more, I'm quite pleased with the length of the track listing on the third one.
This is what I was going to say. Like, I mean, it's
even if it's all a big sort of setup in some ways.
Yeah.
Like, also kind of albums 2 and 3, but I really enjoyed some of the things that we came up with to sort of address those issues and think about sort of the thing as more of an
Will.
arc. Yeah.
Hold that thought for 2 weeks' time. So, are you ready for a cheesy Alex segue DJ moment?
Yes.
Bring it home, darling.
So we were talking about doing things that were different, and talking about the tracks that we think about on the next album, about what is going to be the equivalent. And this track, I think, was one of those biggest ones. It's Ripples. And it is a very different track. It's very dissonant. And I fully remember going into the second album thinking, what is going to be our Ripples of the second album? And even to an extent, what is that equivalent again going to be in the third album? Because it is something that's so jarringly different in harmony making. Does someone remember things about Ripples before we play it, or should we play it?
Well, there's
let's just play it.
We can always chat about it afterwards. But I think this one is very much personal favorite of mine. I think it's my favorite one on this album.
I think this is the one I'll probably be making the most gross me singing faces during. I was trying to get them out before, but it's very high, very young Rosie. Can this be love forever?
How high were you when you recorded the album?
Like the snow for the summer, will it melt away and with her ripples in the long grass, change in the sky? Chance that I may be mistaken, as the mist when morning wakens, dreams will flee and daylight break then.
Rosie, did you just say grass?
I remember there being some debate about how we were going to do the pronunciation in this one. I think it would have been quite difficult to go ripples in the long grass.
And so begins the start of many long conversations over many years.
Ripples in the long grass.
I'm just checking the album notes for this one as well, and it says arranged the Teacups and Andy Parr. If you want to tell us a little bit about that.
So this was another university ensemble arrangement where we get split up into little bands, and completely by accident, I think, because at that time the lecturers we didn't know we were working together. They put me, Will, and Rosie. No, me, Alex, and Rosie in a group with one of our course mates, Andy Parr, who's a fabulous human being and great concertina player, and
also a tenor singer.
So,
and I didn't take it personally at all.
God, I was worried this was gonna come up again.
And Will, we'd go and we had to put stuff together, and Will was in another group, and we put this together. And,
Looking longingly across the hall.
Yeah, and Will's little puppy eyes from his other band going, that's my band over there with somebody else. But yeah, it was really weird, because then Andy then taught Will the part that he put together.
He did do a fantastic job, and it did mean that he did my work for me.
It was also quite funny because around that time, Will and Andy had a lot of physical similarities going on at the same time as well. They had very similar glasses. They had the exact same pair of socks.
Then.
No. Yeah, Will and Andy were having fights just constantly. No.
We've slightly diverged these days. He's a very, very glamorous man. But yeah, I agree. It was a little bit yeah.
Yeah, there were times
Who's
in which
this
I was
bizarro Will?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, love a T to P.
The first of many Tiesta Picaddies.
Well, I do remember, Pete, we refer to you as the fifth member of the Teacups, but I do hate to break it to you that Andy really was the fifth member and you're the sixth. So
Yeah, he's the Pete Best of the situation.
yeah, you're just sort of the end.
Hey, I'm in on the physical beef now, Will. Maybe me and you should rip them up.
Oh, the Teacups that could have been.
There's quite a nice story about this one, because I was quite glad you sort of asked a question there and we were talking, because there's a note in that's a really weird note in my part, and I don't know where it came from, but we were trying to put this together in the ensemble lecture with Andy, and I just couldn't find a part that fit that line, and I just thought, right, we're going to sing it again, and I'm just going to open my mouth, and whatever comes out, we'll see how it goes. And we did it, and this weird note came out, and I thought, oh god, ugh. And just as I did it, Alistair Anderson, who composed the tune, came in, threw the door open, and went, oh, that's magic. And, if Alistair Anderson says that it's magic, I just thought, oh, I've got to keep it now. I can't get rid of that.
Yeah,
but the thing is, every time we did a gig, I had no idea what note was going to come out, because I don't know how I found it in the first place, and I could never quite. Because I'm not singing just before it comes. I haven't got a jumping off point in my throat already, and because it's such a weird song, I can't kind of find the jumping off point in my mind either. So that note quite genuinely has been different every single time we've ever sung that song. I'm absolutely convinced. I have used them all.
It can't have been different every time because there's only so many.
Oh, well, I know.
notes.
Yeah, I realised as soon as I said that, some smart Alec was going to say, but it's.
I think you'll find
inconsistent,
we
put it
are
that way.
limited with the Western musical system.
Oh man.
All right. Let's not give away what's up next, but let's. I'm just gonna before you play it, Will. I mean, those that obviously everyone who's watching this already knows what's coming next anyway, because they know the track list so well. But I'll just thought we could introduce it with what you've written in the sleeve notes, which I liked as well, which is for optimum results, turn up loud and sing your head off.
I like to rise when the sun she rises early in the morning. I like to hear them small birds singing merrily upon the lane.
Very subtle second appearance of my my personal favourite suspended ninth.
In the new mown hay. In spring we sow at the harvest.
Are we starting a suspended ninth drinking game?
The seasons round.
Do not tempt me.
I was going to say, Teacups drinking game. This is such a great idea.
Yeah, but I wouldn't play it for the last album because we'll be on the floor by the time.
To rise when the sun she rises early in the morning. I like to hear them small.
And even virtually, we can do the hideous Teacups way.
The Leyland. Hurrah for the life of a country boy, and to ramble in the new mown hay. In summer when the sun is hot, we sing and we dance and we
Aww, not yet husband and wife duo singing together. Ugh.
sport and play, and go rambling in the new mown hay. For I like to rise when the sun she rises early in the morning.
I think the only problem with this one is I'm going to be singing this until we do the next one of these now.
The Leyland. Hurrah for
That's the general issue with this song. Generally, it's just, yeah, bit of an earworm. Because you're not so keen on this one anymore, are you, Alex?
Nope.
the oak trees turn.
I wasn't that keen on it when we recorded it, but I was being happy. We got a new band. People want to sing. This is so great. It got about 3 years into singing this song endlessly, and I was like, no, we're not doing this at gigs anymore. I can't take it anymore.
I remember having quite a strong memory of putting together the arrangement of this one, and if you isolate my part out, it suddenly jumps like really high out of nowhere, and I'll maybe come back to it once the song's finished, so I can demonstrate what I mean.
In winter when the
This is where it's winter. We sing gently and dark and moody.
and we ditch our time away.
Oh, it's summer.
When the sun shines gay, we'll go rambling in the new mown hay. For I like to rise when the sun she rises early in the morning. I like to hear them small birds singing merrily upon
It's really interesting listening to this, not having listened to it for a long time, because
for the
you
country
listen to it completely different
ramble in
here,
the
you're sort of
new
less
mown
critical.
hay.
And it's really reminded me of is how much fun we're having. Well, I was. I don't know about you. It was just so much fun. Just singing all the time, and we had these practice rooms that were free, and we had recording facilities that were free, and it was just the best fun.
For the country boy, and to ramble in the new mown hay.
I remember putting this one together, and I think I was writing my part. It must have been after a couple of the rest of you guys had already written yours, because I
That
was
is kind of the standard.
that's usually the way it works out, and I was working out where I would fit into the mix. And for the first couple of lines, you know, I'm right in the thick of it, you know, kind of right in the middle of it. And then we reached that third line, and all those spots effectively were taken. So I kept just having to just creep higher and higher and higher and higher until I found a spot I could slot in. So like isolating my part out, it's like do doobie doo doobie doo doo doo, la da 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 da. It's the weirdest part. If you just look at that one,
This
it
is one thing
makes zero sense.
One thing I remember about the early days of arranging stuff together, we were so fixated on filling out every single chord, like particularly me and Will, because me and Will are instrumentally chord players. So we were just so used to filling out every chord as much as possible. And like as the albums go on, you hear that the parts make more lyrical sense individually, because we're suddenly like, okay, a passing note here and there that are the same is absolutely fine for it not to be mental, you know.
Yeah.
Living that suspended ninth life.
Yeah. have we got? Next on the list.
Okay.
Oh man, Babes in the Wood. So this is one that I learned when doing Folkwick summer schools, which I went to between the ages of like 14 and 17, something like that. And I remember that it was one of those ones that I got taught with a harmony kind of attached to it. So I'm pretty sure that the parts that Will and I are singing in this are like here's the part and
Pre-made.
here's the harmony, and they were just kind of there it is. And then and then we kind of doctored it to add in other parts to it. So which I don't know how obvious that is in the listening, but probably quite obvious.
Babes in the Wood.
Oh, don't you remember a long time ago? Those little babies,
What was that
their
noise?
names I'd
That's so we haven't listened to this in a while.
far away one bright summer.
Serious face.
It's
Serious
also
face.
so
Such a horrible
slow.
song. Yeah.
We don't sing this slow.
Got lost on their way.
I don't remember ever doing it much faster than that.
Maybe we did.
No, I
Maybe we
remember
did.
it being pretty swooshy.
Pretty babe.
Oh, I'm in the rafters.
Oh, well, in that case, I'm in the basement. Then I'm listening.
Don't you remember those babes in the wood? Now the day
I can't sing that low anymore, by the way.
and the night's
Now
coming.
that we're kind of taking the mick out of
Sorry.
it, though, I don't think it's. I think it's nice. It's got its moments.
Sat under a stone.
What, our repertoire or this song?
They sobbed and they sighed.
Take your
They
pick.
sat down and cried. Those two.
We're definitely doing the world's most miserable folk song justice here by commenting over it.
Pretty babes in the wood. Pretty babes in the wood. Oh, don't you remember those babes in the wood? Now the robins so red, so swiftly they sped, they put up their wide wings and over them spread. And all the day long the branches did throng, so sweetly did carol, and this was their song. Pretty babes in the wood. Pretty babes in the wood. Oh, don't you remember those babes in the wood?
I do agree that it's a nice arrangement, it's a nice song, but I remember singing it and just going, oh my goodness, I never want to sing this high ever again in my whole life. Because although I take your point, Will, that I can make sounds of that pitch, I'm not sure I would call it singing. It's just not very nice to listen to. I don't like it at all.
I think the reason why you remember it being so much faster is because you always just wanted to get through it as quickly as
No, well, I
possible.
mean, to get to the chorus, certainly. I feel like the chorus is really lovely, actually.
I also think it's very interesting because as a band generally, particularly in the early days, and I think probably both the first and second album really don't have that much death, and most of our repertoire is pretty jolly and not death orientated, which is a miracle
Yeah.
in folk song. So I feel like having a song about 3 babies dying kind of really counterbalances that
Yeah,
somewhat,
for
doesn't
real.
it?
You got to make it up somehow.
I remember that one was one that we would inevitably like be joking around a bunch and then realize we needed to introduce it and be like, oh god. Like... We've just really not set ourselves up well in this situation.
It's a habit we've never really truly kicked.
Yeah.
We always tend to do the silliest introductions before realising we're about to do the saddest songs.
Yeah.
Well, and I think this is where we come into our own on these listening parties, because we can talk while singing as well. So. Can we go on to the next one?
Well, I was just going to interject at that moment. So we're just over halfway through the album, and I just thought maybe you touched on it a little bit earlier. I can't remember if it was you, Al, or Will, about the process and making this record. So I just thought, given that when we come to the other albums, we'll have probably a little bit more to say about that. Maybe it'd be good. This would be a good chance to just kind of talk about. If you kind of, I think it's interesting with a cappella albums, whether you kind of all do it together, kind of what your setup is, that kind of thing, really.
So I will jump in here because it's haunted my brain ever since. And I still wake up in cold sweat sometimes. But around the similar time we recorded the Teacups album, I was recording an album with someone else at some place somewhere. I can't actually remember. I'm not being vague for purpose. I just can't remember. But I had using on this album, there was a use of click tracks and like tones, so we could like stay on pitch and make sure we can pitch really nicely. And I was mostly doing it on the accordion, but I had such a bad experience on this album recording with a click track and a drone tone thing, and I came sort of fairly fresh into recording this Teacups album going, we are not using a click, we are not using a drone, we are not doing it, it's horrible, we should never be happen. And as a result of that,
I remember that.
As a result of that, it's like if you jump from the beginning to an end of a track quickly, you'll notice we've completely changed key.
But do we do that
still
much,
haunts
though?
my dreams. Yes.
Because the only one that I
You're not
actually
meant to
remember,
give the game away, Alex.
the only one I actually remember that happening significantly in was T stands for Thomas. And I remember having a conversation with someone who shall remain nameless. Somebody else's album had come out and they'd done that, and they were sort of saying, "Oh, I don't think that's very good at all. You know, I wouldn't do it like that. And if I'd done that, I'd do it again." And I just remember thinking, "Oh God, please never." Please never play T stands for Thomas and then decide to play it again, because you will hate it.
Eye-opening experience.
The thing is, I feel like that probably happens more than we think on albums, because like who does listen to the same song over and over again? I noticed this happening on a James Taylor album one time. There's a cappella song that he does called Traffic Jam on one of his albums, and he shifts like a whole tone down during it, but I don't notice it while it's happening, so it's just...
you don't.
If it's an arrangement, like some of the arrangement, like Babes in the Wood is evidently very, very low down in my range, and so that kind of helps solidify that we're not going to really go down, because if we go down anymore, I can't hit the notes. But yeah, there's some arrangements when we're singing closer together and we're sort of in the comfortable points in our ranges, it does just go vroom. And this is sort of a fun challenge for people to do listening to the album.
There are times as well where we sing quite a long song and we get to the end and Will goes toot on his little toot pipe, and technical term, and he goes, "Oh, we stayed on pitch," and I'm like surprised, because it's such a long song and there's been so many sort of changes, or different bits coming in and out, and some people are very high, which throws you off, or some people are very low, which throws you off. And we got to the end and we're still, or we're tired or something, or it's at the end of rehearsal and we're still on pitch, and I just think, great.
I think we're gonna have to. It's gonna have to wait until we do the listening party for the second album, because I'm pretty sure it's actually in a rapper set. But with pretty much all of our other, or if that's gonna happen, we drift downward, because you get tired and gravity does its work effectively. But like
singing it live,
but. With the rapper set, it weirdly goes the other way, and we drift upward, and we tend towards going sharp. And because my last note in rapper set is very high indeed, when we get to the end, and then we finish it, and there's been a few times live where we finish it, and then sort of while everyone's busy clapping or sort of chatting about the next one or whatever, I'll kind of turn around and get the little note, and then just be like, we went sharp by like a tone and a half, like, thanks guys, really appreciate it, it's fine.
I think there that's usually my fault, in fairness. Like,
there
it's
are
going
so many
between
stories
the tunes.
about
That'll have to
It's just
wait.
the increasing pitch of panic, isn't it? Just going, oh my god, am I going to get to the end of this without passing out? Or, you
For
know.
real.
Yeah.
Just back to Pete's question though, because he mentioned about how we recorded it.
Did Pete ask a question? I
Yeah,
forgot.
Why do you think he's drinking gin and we're sat here not drinking at all?
Just for those that are watching this, likely on a Sunday morning, we're not recording this on a Sunday morning. It's legitimate.
Yeah, Pete. Yeah, Pete. You can say that.
It's the other way to cope with you
Covering your
guys.
I was
tracks,
going to
Pete.
say, nothing wrong with a cheeky day lash, you know, nothing wrong.
This is how I've got through the past 7 years.
That explains so much. But yeah, you mentioned about just talking about how we recorded it. And so the place we actually recorded it was at the recording studios at the university. I think you asked that question well earlier. We never answered about like part of it was that we had this free resource. And like Kate mentioned that people were asking for an album. We didn't have one. And we had this free resource at uni. We were like, well, let's just do it. And it was just like these studios were not amazingly well soundproofed. They weren't like perfect for what we were doing. But I seem to remember your brother Anise doing a pretty nice job of, we had microphones each for ourselves, but also had a few room mics set up in the space, which worked really nicely. So like in hindsight, what would have been nice is probably to do the same technique that we did, but record it in a nicer sounding room. But I think Anise did a really nice job of capturing the sound of that room as much as they could.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember. I think we did definitely record most of it. I want to say in the university.
I have a memory of going to
but
Gateshead College as well
Yeah,
to do some of it.
Anise at the time was doing some teaching at Gateshead College, and I remember maybe 1 or 2 recording sessions, and at the very least we went there to talk about the planning of the album, because I have a memory of the recording studio in Gateshead College, and there was a cajon
Oh my god.
in the
I
back of the
remember
room.
this.
And Alex kind of, we walked into the room and Anise said hi, and then Alex kind of saw this cajon in the back and went, ooh, and like went over and sat on it and instantly started like, playing something really high octane and like really high energy. And then he finished, and Anise was just kind of like, I've never heard someone play that well before.
It's just a rattly box that people bash.
So yeah, I mean, so you impressed my brother.
I don't have any memory or recollection of that whatsoever, but I can definitely say that sounds like me.
I don't either.
I think it was the first time he'd ever seen someone mute the cajon while playing it with their sock on their heel.
I've got so many socks still from the days of playing cajon with a worn out like backs of ankles, and I just haven't thrown them away for no reason.
Oh,
But
great.
you,
Anyway.
you must have a lot of odd socks, Alex, because half of them are still in my car boot from when we've been out staying places, and you've left, your pajama bottoms or a toothbrush or something at somebody's house.
I found
It's ended up in my car.
I found one of your socks in our printer once, just like in the
Like inside it.
yeah. I don't know how it got there.
So, with the risk of everyone else getting a little bit lost in
Sorry.
Sorry.
where Alex's
sorry.
socks are, I'll just bring it also back to the question, which was so you just all in one room sang the songs, loads of takes or 1 or 2 takes, and then you just pick the best take,
don't
but
think
you
we
edit
had-
them and.
I don't think we had time for loads of takes. I don't remember singing anything more than like
Maybe-
2 or 3 times.
yeah, maybe
really,
like 3
at the
times.
most.
I remember it not taking long, which, like, with hindsight, is a lot more impressive than I remember it being at
You
the
guys
time.
must hate
Like,
me.
I think we did it. I think we did it in 2.5 days, and that first half day was setting up and getting things ready, and then
Yeah.
just 2 afternoons and evenings.
It really
recording
was a
it.
whirlwind of
wasn't
an
long.
album. Yeah.
And there was one song that didn't make it as well. Do you remember we tried to do? I think it was Harriet Tubman
Yeah.
or something, and it
Yeah.
just didn't come out right, did it? None of us could really say, "Oh, this is what's wrong with it" or whatever. But
Just didn't come
for
together.
some reason, it just didn't sound right, and we decided not to put it on.
I think each of the not sure about the third album, but definitely the first 2 have got like ghost tracks of like ones that should be on this album but just weren't quite right.
Are not.
Yeah.
I think all albums have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. What's
Yeah.
up next, Will?
next on the list we have General Taylor.
Can I, before you play it, I want to put a little thing to this, because we arranged this in person and we were aware that I led absolutely no songs whatsoever on this first album and in any of our repertoire. And so we kind of decided that, oh, Alex can start this. He's got a strong voice. He'll start with a sea shanty. And in all performances, all live shows, I started this song and just sang the first verse, and that was the song I led, even though I didn't lead it any other time in that song. But we came to recording it, and for some reason, I have no idea why, I just chickened out. We recorded it. I hated my voice. I was having a really bad day, apparently. And so Will sings it. And sort of, it goes back to Will's comment earlier of back in this day of trying to pretend he had a lower voice than normal. He had to try and sing this part, which was not made for him because I was grumpy and didn't want to sing it.
I remember this. I remember you coming to me on the day and being like, Will, I can't do it. No, you just sing the first line. Just sing the first line. Just do it from there. And me being like, I can't.
And so here it is.
General Taylor carried the day. Walk him along, John, carry him along. He won the Battle of Molly Del Rey. Carry him to his burying ground. Way stormy.
This is another one we utilised a lot of unison singing. It's lovely.
This one also seems slow to me now. Like, I don't know if we do actually sing it any faster than this, but it seems slow.
His burying ground, we dug his grave with a silver spade.
Walking really kind of possibly just niche to me observation about this song, in that because we were recording all of this during university of this first year, I want to say.
Second year.
I must have recorded it in second year. Somewhere around second year or third year of university, I think it was mostly third year, my main vocal tutors, which up to that point had been James Fagan, became Dave Webber and Jim McGeehan, and they spent a while kind of giving me some more shanty kind of repertoire and things like that. So it was kind of over that year that I developed what I think of as my shanty voice, and this was before that. So I'm listening to this now being like, yeah, I did not have a shanty voice then.
I'm looking forward to when we do the third album, one of these, and to discuss your shanty voice.
John, carry him along. Way,
which I believe is now done in percentages of shanty.
carry him to
Hey man, you only ever go full shanty once.
I was old stormy sun. Walk him along, John, carry him
So I'm remembering
build me
this track does not paint me in a great light in any way whatsoever. But this is bringing back memories of what an annoying swear word I was back in the day. Probably still am. But I remember when we approached this arrangement that I really was fed up of singing bass parts. And I was like, we need to make sure we do songs that do not have bass parts because it sounds different. And I seem to remember framing it in a way that, it will artistically sound more interesting, in which case it does most,
I build me a ship of
I'm pretty sure it was just because I was entirely fed up with just singing bass lines, and I was grumpy that I wasn't leading many songs, I think, probably.
This is just a tour of Alex's diva-ness.
I think as an arrangement, I still really like it. I like the chorus, especially. The chorus has a delicacy to it that I really like, actually.
Yeah, I think it worked out well in the end, but it wasn't great in the end. I don't think.
I didn't mean for it to be any good.
Story of our lives.
his burying ground. I'd pour a tot for every man. Walk him along.
Hearing us sing tops there kind of makes me realise how much we've done on being together and understanding how each other sing. Because, like, live and even on recordings, like, our ability to sing our diction so closely together is amazing. And that was such a, like, moment.
Yeah. Totally.
See, the reason we're singing this so slowly is just because we're desperately trying to make the album any longer than 30 minutes.
I wouldn't put it past Alex to think that was an idea.
Hey, Stormy, walk him along, John, carry him along. Way, Stormy, carry him to his burying ground.
There we go.
There it is.
There it is.
A lot learnt about Alexander Cumming.
Yeah, I like that one too, as well.
It's
Actually,
also,
Like-
I remember arranging that song. We were in one of the practice rooms, and it was you and me, Alex, sitting at the piano trying to work out kind of some slightly more interesting places to go, like harmonically, than just what you'd completely expect. And I remember you put that minor chord in, way stormy, making it minor there. I remember that was one of the, maybe not the first, but that was one of the first instances of me kind of like seeing you put that idea in and being like, wow, he's really good at this.
Aw.
Hey, Stormy. Oh, I can't do it.
What was unexpectedly kind about that, Will, was that you said that was one of many instances where you went on to think it, which is
Well, yeah, I
quite
mean,
genuine.
funnily enough, I really like working with that guy.
What's his name again?
Oh, thank you, darling.
Oh.
All right, what's up
The
next?
next track is really interesting because this comes. I think this echoes various things we've talked about.
Oh
During
no,
this.
I know what it is.
Yeah, well, no, it's multiple. There's so many things. One is Kate complaining about
Sorry.
high notes. Two is us having the north-south argument about how we pronounce dance. And but also about how we arranged it and how we approached it, and like thinking about the thickness of chords and stuff really is relevant to this song. And this was also, I think, was this the other song in our first gig at this St. Patrick's thing? Is that right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Because
it
this
was.
is
Can't remember.
this was an Irish version of Dance to Your Daddy, which more people know of the kind of Northumbrian version.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not even sure they're related. Actually,
No.
I think they just happen to have the same title.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Because I can't
There's-
see any sort of.
Yeah, there's very little
Yeah.
to link them
But
otherwise.
this is
really.
also
But
the.
I did sort of smugly enjoy the fact that I remember going, people will think this is the Northumbrian.
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
and actually it's completely different.
And then we screwed ourselves
gotcha.
over for the third album where we've got Dance to Your Daddy and we have to call it a different name so it doesn't get
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about this was also our first foray into something vaguely original because Kate wrote some verses to this because I think
Very true.
I would say wrote some verses in the loosest possible sense. I thought of 3 objects that might rhyme or go together or whatever, But
Turns out
yeah, it was the first time I'd done that.
turns out that's all writing lyrics is. 3 objects, some of them might rhyme.
I got news for you,
Like-
Jack. That's songwriting.
Okay.
All right.
Okie doke.
Dance to your daddy, oh, dance to your mommy, oh, dance to your daddy, oh, my own pretty child. Dance to your daddy, oh, dance to your mommy, oh, dance to your daddy, oh.
This one's crammed full of the Alex Cumming patented chromatic bass line as well, isn't it?
I'll buy my child a spoon, I'll buy my child a writing set and he can go to school.
I went through a horrible period of getting too carried away with chromatic bass lines and singing out on my accordion. It was horrible.
I know, having worked on you on records where you play accordion.
Freudian much?
Having worked on records with you where you play accordion too, I enjoy hearing you sing like you're playing the accordion sometimes.
Yeah, luckily for everybody, the styles separated.
You can cross off another square on your Teacups bingo sheet on this one as well, which is me playing a game entitled We Sing a Chord and I work out what's the fewest number of someone move their part to make a different chord. Let's keep everything as same as possible and just one person move.
Dance to your daddy-o, my own pretty child. Dance to your daddy-o, dance to your mommy-o.
I feel like we overshot the whole how to pronounce dance thing here. I feel like it's gone too far. Dance.
I'm also noticing that us in those choruses, the three of us, me and Will and Alex, are all finishing the word dance at different times, so it's going dance like.
I'll buy my
Never
child
on my
a crown
watch.
of gold and he can be a king. Dance to your
I remember this one being particularly hard to breathe in, like, which is why I'm breathing in weird places and going in weird places, like.
my own pretty child.
Like, with the pronunciation thing as well, I seem to remember that me, as the southerner, ended up having to sing dance because you have to say it quickly. It's like dance to daddy. And you guys, or you and Rosie and Will, the northerners, having to go dance, dance, dance. So it was like a complete swap of the pronunciation.
Pretty child, dance to your daddy-o, dance to your mommy-o, dance to your daddy-o, my own pretty child.
I was also really sad in that one that we only all sung that end bit with all the words together once, because it was like my
Yeah.
favourite bit of the whole
Yeah,
song. Doing those
absolutely.
kind of slides down on
Yeah, it's
the
nice.
words. They're
Yeah.
really great.
So I was performing that song at 3 a.m. last night to my son Felix, who was not sleeping, and I was there for an hour singing this bloody song. So I don't like the song as much as I used to. But there was a moment I remember. You know that sort of state when you're tired enough that you're kind of vaguely aware of the world but not really sure. Now it's a really weird experience when you're singing a song. Because I have distinct memories of me last night standing there, leaning against the wall, trying to sing the kid to sleep, and singing words that didn't really make any sense, and the sounding gross like dance to the band dance. It was somehow very soothing, but
And surely, if
Yeah.
there's any time you don't want him to be dancing to his daddy-o, it's there, right there.
hang on, this is right. I've been choosing the wrong song all along, haven't I? Now at a point he understands language perfectly well,
Yeah.
and he's wondering why I'm getting mad at him because he keeps standing up and dancing.
Oh, man.
Light
You'd
bulb
have to
moment.
change it to sleep for your daddy-o or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Or maybe these sort of like lullabies are supposed to be therapeutic for the parents, and the kids are supposed to sleep. So maybe a few more swear words and things might make it for me.
Yeah. Oh, what we got next?
So what we got next?
Oh, hitting the home straight.
Okay, we are on
2 left.
two to go.
So this is the very first song that we ever arranged all together, I do believe.
That wasn't forced on upon us by the ensemble class.
Yes.
Yeah, very true.
Our first song together actually was "Buy broom besoms, buy them when they're new. Fine hair that reddens better never grew." Yeah,
Very true, very true.
Yeah.
It was, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed it.
it was
Why
ruined.
did we never do that one?
I don't.
I'm not
well,
a
it's because it was
massive
ruined
fan
by
of that
like,
song personally.
Fair dues.
yeah, and it was 15 other people playing instruments over the top of us. So you know,
Do 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 do.
well, it was 15 other people playing instruments and us four attempting to play our instruments along with it. I seem to remember it being yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
So,
Yeah, early ensemble was quite traumatic for me because I went in very much as a singer first and foremost, and my second instrument was steel pan, which was very cool of the folk degree to let me do that as a second instrument. But I was not at that point used to playing folk tunes on it. So like when in ensemble they were like, right, here's the tune, off you go. I was kind of like, oh god,
Yeah.
and like
And I was just the same because I think we kind of bonded over that,
Yeah.
didn't we? Because I went in as a singer, and my second instrument was something I'd been playing for about 6 months
Yeah.
or something, not very long anyway. And I was mostly getting through ensemble by miming at the back.
yeah. But nothing
And
nothing
I
else
wasn't-
sounds like a steel pan, so it's really obvious when you're getting
Yeah,
it
you
wrong,
can do that.
know?
Yeah, exactly. I was either miming or going, I'll just drone.
I
Yeah.
had
Drone,
this,
drone's a great idea. I'll just play one note
Yeah.
all the way through. It's fine.
I was the only
Um,
accordion player in our year, but I I'd only really played Morris dance tunes, so I played at a top speed of ya da 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 ya da da da, you know. So suddenly going to Newcastle, and I thought, I guess like we all did, thought, oh, English music we're in England, and it was it was much more Northumbrian and Celtic heavy than I ever imagined, and so we went into that first session, and it's another reason, like you said, we bonded, because suddenly like this tune goes like this.
Do you remember what one of the first ones that we did was? It was the Flipping Lads of Alnwick.
Yeah.
And it was I'm like, I can't even. That is so fast. I can't even tell the notes apart.
It was in the key of A.
Like,
it was key of A in 3/2, which is a meter I don't think any of us had ever experienced in our lives. And it was just all around a stressful experience. Oh.
Real.
I think you're absolutely right. I think the four of us really bonded in that first semester. We all of us developed a 1,000-yard stare.
Oh man. Anyway, yes.
It was fun though.
So the first song that we actually did together, outside of ensemble, is the Jolly Rogues.
In good King Arthur's day, when we served under the king, lived a miller and a weaver and a little tailor, 3 jolly rogues of Lynn. 3 jolly rogues of Lynn. 3 jolly rogues of Lynn. Lived a miller and a weaver and a little tailor, 3 jolly rogues of Lynn. Now the miller he stole corn, and the weaver he stole yarn,
like, they seem a lot more stately than I remember.
stole broadcloth for to keep those 3 rogues warm. For to keep those 3 rogues warm. For to keep those 3 rogues warm. And the little tailor he stole broadcloth for to keep those 3 rogues warm. Now the miller he drowned in his dam, and the weaver was hung by his yarn.
My favourite bass line in all Teacups history.
The devil ran away with the tailor one day, with a broadcloth under his arm. With a broadcloth under his arm. With a broadcloth under his arm. And the devil ran away with the tailor one day, with a broadcloth under his arm. Now the miller still drowns in his dam, and the weaver still hangs by his yarn.
That is the most happily sung moment of hanging ever, isn't
He
it?
skips through hell with a broadcloth under his arm. With a broadcloth under his arm. With a broadcloth under his arm. And the little tailor he skips through hell with a broadcloth under his arm. In good King Arthur's day, when we served under the miller and a weaver and a little tailor, 3 jolly tailors, 3 jolly rogues of Lynn.
I still remember the sheer delight of us discovering we could do like a family thing like that. We were like, we felt so special.
And a weaver and a little tailor, 3 jolly rogues of Lynn.
I think you can tell by the way we didn't chat on all over that how much we like it. Well, for me anyway. I think that one's got a really kind of special place in my heart, not just because it was the first one we did, but also because the whole reason I got into folk music was because of my dad, who wasn't really a folkie. I mean, he just sort of bought a couple of folk records in the 70s, which I then came across when I was a teenager. And he plays guitar much better than he thinks he does. And he kind of half remembered a couple of folk songs from the 60s when he went to a couple of folk clubs, and that was one of the ones he half remembered. So it was really nice for me to take that snippet that he taught me when I was quite young, or didn't really teach me, I just heard him singing, very, very occasionally, and then, meet other people and put the other parts of the puzzle together, and decide which bits from which version we were going to keep, because we all knew versions of that one. And I remember the bit that I really wanted to keep, because I've never heard it in anybody else's version, was the bit about the devil ran away with the tailor one day. And that was the line that I really wanted to keep in, just to sort of have that link, because I haven't got a lot of kind of familial musical links really in that sense. So that was really important to me, and it was really nice to be able to keep that in.
I have a memory about that one, but I don't know if I might have told you guys about it at some point, but it's kind of a link that doesn't actually have anything to do with the band. But there was a friend of ours. I have a very small chip on my shoulder about I've always
Here
wanted...
we go. Brace yourselves, everyone.
I've always wanted to be the kind of person who regularly plays D&D, and over the years, I've
This
like
is
kind
not
of
how
I've tried
I think
joining.
anyone was imagining this. Was
No.
right?
And I've tried joining a few different groups, and the very slight chip I have on my shoulder is, despite like a lot of kind of commitment myself and dedication, the maximum number of sessions I've ever done before things fizzled out was 2. And a friend of ours wrote a sort of self-contained one-shot campaign for us that was like a really sort of it was based on that song, and that was kind of the twist that he we picked up halfway through when we were kind of trying to work out this murder mystery of what had happened to these 3 people, and one of them had drowned and one of them had hanged, and there's that. But like, bless him, he really tried, but he really wasn't a folkie. Like, he didn't really understand. So first of all, he was there the whole time, just like watching us, just like waiting for us to get it. And then also he was just like, I tried to give you guys like rewards based on like the things that they made, but I'm gonna level with you, I have no idea what broadcloth is. So yeah, it's a one-shot D&D campaign based on 3 Jolly Rogues of Lynn.
I think I understood about half of what you said, but
I know if you already thought that you'd entirely narrowed down your potential audience by becoming a musician, I think you've just halved it again.
But at least
I live on a
I don't
narrow
know. I was gonna say, I
wavelength.
feel like the folky and nerdy Venn diagram is like more of a circle than most people
lot of
think it is.
I think you're right. I
I
throw
think
into
Fair
that
was-
like extreme metal heads as well.
Yes,
I think, kind
yes.
of weirdly as
Yeah.
well.
Totally.
All right, should we pull this ship into harbour then?
Yeah, very
Ooh,
last
yeah,
song on the
nice.
first album.
Okay.
See what you did
is there
there.
anything else we need to be talking about, Pete, before we do the last one? Have you got any other?
Let's play
burning
the last
ideas?
one, and then we'll
can chat after.
we'll do a plenary at the end.
Oh, that's a word I haven't heard.
Plenary.
Oh, the rain, it raineth all day long. Bold Riley, oh, bold
You sound really young in this one. Baby Will.
And those Normandy winds are blowing strong. Bold Riley, oh, has gone away. Goodbye, my sweetheart.
Apologies for the unsubtle entry there.
Goodbye, my dear, oh, Bold Riley, oh, Bold Riley. Goodbye, my darling. Goodbye, my dear, oh, Bold Riley, oh, has gone.
I think I just did a chromatic run, and that was horrible. I'm really
Oh,
sorry.
the anchors weighed and the sails are set. Bold Riley, oh,
I
bold
do think it's quite, I'm not saying it's bad, but I do think it's quite gratifying to listen to it and
and
think how
them
much better we are
Liverpool
now.
duties we'll never forget.
This is what I was thinking. I've always got really annoyed with artists who do anniversary thing where they re-record songs they've already recorded. And now listening to this album, I'm like, I really get that now. I can really see why you want to record it, because we do it so much better now.
Dear, oh, Bold Riley, oh, Bold Riley. Goodbye, my darling. Goodbye, my dear, oh,
Bold Riley-O has gone away. We're bound away for the Bengal Bay. Bold Riley-O, bold Riley.
It's a mint arrangement, though, isn't it?
Keep rowing, boys, it's a bloody long way.
Shanty voice, yeah.
Might have just gotten a hint to Shanty there.
It's so funny. It's like he's almost like Alex goes, "Oh, I'm allowed to swear, bloody."
Goodbye, my sweetheart. Goodbye, my dear. Oh,
Well, there you go.
bold
One for the pot.
Riley-O, bold Riley.
How's it?
Goodbye, my darling. Goodbye, my dear. Oh, bold Riley-O has gone away. Cheer up, Mary Ellen, don't be so glum. Bold Riley-O, bold Riley. Come White Stocking Day, we'll drink hot rum. Bold Riley-O has gone away. Goodbye, my sweetheart. Goodbye, my dear. Oh, bold Riley-O, bold Riley. Goodbye,
It's really funny the relationship that you have with different songs, because
goodbye, my
there's mismatch between ones I liked and I liked singing and
bold
ones that you
Riley-O.
sometimes. I mean, not all the time, but and this was one that I think is really nice. It's a really nice song, but it wasn't one I loved singing so much, you know. And people seem to really, really enjoy it. And I always remember thinking, I'm getting a bit bored of this one. All I do is go ooh.
Yeah.
And but everyone seemed to really enjoy it.
But I think part of that also goes back to what you were saying earlier about like that kind of like 60s, 70s revival. And I think that song was a real big
Yeah.
song, like closer song. It brings a lot of memories to people. It's also one of those songs that's so easy to belong to.
Secret track.
Oh my god, I'd forgotten about the secret track.
Suppose K stands for Kate and it's W-E-N-M stands for my sweet William, and Rosie is really, really great.
Wow, so
I totally forgot we did
so
that.
secret that even we forgot about it.
There you go. How about that?
Totally forgot we did that.
Oh, amazing.
Ah, that was a nice touch.
Yeah.
That end.
One for the pot. Done.
And weirdly, we didn't know what to call it, and we did a Facebook page competition, and I don't remember the name of the guy whose suggestion we picked, but we emailed him and said, "We've picked your suggestion. Would you like a free copy of the album?" Which was the prize for being picked. And I don't think he ever got back to us, did he?
No, I don't think
So I don't know who it was or whether he ever got
This
an
is-
album, but
this is
we
the
owe that
thing.
guy an album.
It was probably just some rando who just wanted to, get in on the fun tea punning sort of situation and didn't actually follow the band or anything,
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
maybe.
if that
Who
was
knows?
you, leave a comment below.
Yeah. We owe you a free album.
How's it feel listening back to it all now? Do you feel proud of it still? Do you think?
I think definitely proud of it. It's a mixed bag. Like, I'm not gonna lie. There's definitely bits that like I listen to and I think like it definitely sounds rough. But I think that like realistically though, I think it's a reflection of the start of a journey. If that, I mean, that sounds a bit kind of
No, I agree.
twee.
I fully agree.
But like, yeah, it sounds like the beginning, you know what I mean? And it's like, obviously, you know, you don't start at the end, you don't start fully realized. And I think I enjoy listening to it as a snapshot in time.
And I think
Yeah.
for me as well, I'm not very good at celebrating my achievements. I'm always thinking about what I haven't done rather than what I have done. So to have been able to take a bit of time and listen to something I did, even though it is sort of the beginning of a journey and it's the first thing and it's got lots of things that are a bit rough around the edges and things we do differently now, I have to try and bear in mind that I came to university with no formal music training at all and nothing really more than an interest and an urge to get over stage fright that stopped me singing in a sing around. And by the end of the second year, you know, I'd learned how to sing in harmony. I'd never sung in harmony before, and we'd formed this band, and I was doing really well at uni, and we'd released a flipping album. You know, by the end of my second year, I had smashed all the goals that I'd set for myself, which were mostly just don't flunk.
Yeah.
You know, so even though now I'm going, well, what will I do next? Who shall I play? You know, what are my next steps? And trying to keep it going or do new and interesting and innovative things. I think for me, looking back at it and going, actually, that at that point in my life, that was a massive achievement, and I am really happy with it. I think being able to look back on it with that less critical ear of the time and just listen to it as somebody else might, you know, I'm really happy with it.
I think for me, it's just like you're saying, it's a snapshot in time, but it also, like you're saying, it's a great snapshot of time on our musical journey. But it also just brings back so many memories of us like forming our friendships, which has now been like 10 years. Like that's. And there's so many, and we've gone through a lot of wonderful moments. We've all gone through tough moments, but we've all been there and helped each other. Like I have this one memory of the three of you turning up at my doorstep one day. I was going through a really bad moment of depression, and I hadn't gone out. I hadn't bought myself groceries, and then I'm gonna cry now, aren't I? But you three were just at my doorstep with groceries, and you just came and hung out, and we sang, and you brought me food, and it was like really mad. And that was around this time of the album. It was like about halfway through university, and like
Was that the time we brought you a vegan haggis?
It might have been. Yeah. Sadly, that didn't help the situation too well, but
No, it just gave everybody wind.
Now he's definitely gonna cry.
Yeah.
How dare you bring that up?
I actually prefer veggie haggis to regular haggis these days. It's nicer, I think.
And
But,
here is a good snapshot of how Teacups conversations go from being poignant and almost crying to I prefer veggie haggis.
Yeah.
Getting emotional whiplash over here.
Yeah, for real.
Well, I think that's a lovely place to leave it. It's been really lovely to chat to you all about this album, about loads of stories that I didn't know, loads of things that I came late to the party on, I think, and it's really interesting to kind of hear how you ended up there before I ended up working with you on the other two albums. I guess for anybody that's really the kind of crazy kid that watches an album, listen along, but doesn't own the album, I'll drop a link in the comments below to where you can pick up your copy of One for the Pot, and yeah, I think we'll just see everybody again at the same time next week to do it all over again for Of Labour and Love. And I think what I've really enjoyed about this conversation is we're going to really see kind of the next stage in the journey when it comes to that album and kind of things that we did differently.
Meets haggis.
Exactly. You know, it wasn't that long afterwards though. I was just looking it up, and we started demoing Of Labour and Love at my flat in London. So that must be 2014. So it was only a year after this came out. So yeah, I've got loads to talk about that next time.
Yay!
Yeah.
Thank you, Pete.
Oh, thanks,
Thank
Pete.
you, everyone.
This has been great.
Goodbye.
See you
world.
then.
See you next week.
Bye.
Who are you, me honey? She answered me quite modestly, I am me mother's darling, with me to Raya. Father little da, today or father little dairy, oh.